Hello, my fellow Bitcoin nerd friends. I have a quick announcement here for you, and it's a very short window that you can take action on what I'm about to outline. You're never too late to Bitcoin, but you will be too late to making Bitcoin friends in a Bitcoin network, right? Even though the number of Bitcoin adopters in the coming decade or two is going to go up by a factor of 50 or 500, the reality is if you want to form lifelong friendships with people in Bitcoin, in my opinion, this is the time to do it when you still have the ability to go to in-person Bitcoin events. In my opinion, these are the highest alpha kinds of events that you could possibly go to. So I'm going to outline a handful of half a dozen really quickly, half a dozen Bitcoin events that I think you're going to want to hear about. Some of these events are free. Others of these events you have to pay for, but whatever the case, highly encourage you to consider going to at least one of these. Of course, first of all, we got to talk about the big one, Camp Nakamoto 2025. It is October 10th to 13th in Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. We have an entire private island rented out. There's going to be about 100 to 150 Bitcoiners there. It's a family-friendly event. Feel free to bring your loved ones. It's going to be really awesome. We've got a lineup of amazing speakers. A lot of the speakers are bringing their own families. You know, the whole point of this event is not to be a big fancy conference where, you know, there are different tiers or classes of people. The whole nature of this event is to make friends with people in Bitcoin. So the people that are going: Mark Moss, Larry Lepard, yours truly, myself, Joe Consorti, Adam O'Brien, BJ Dichter, Dave Foley, Michelle Weekly, and about half a dozen other wonderful speakers are going to be there. We're going to have awesome food, awesome time there, awesome activities, and of course, most importantly, memories. So if you want to spend 3 days with a lot of people in Bitcoin that you do recognize, as well as meeting a lot of fellow plebs there that share the same enthusiasm as you of wanting to hang out with people in person, highly encourage you to check out Camp Nakamoto. Like I said, 100 to 150 Bitcoiners or so, family friendly, lots of great speakers, private island with peak fall foliage. We'll have lots of outdoor fun activities. Yes, this is a Bitcoin think tank. Yes, this is a workshop. Yes, hopefully you're going to learn a lot. However, at the same time, hopefully you're going to leave with at least a few friends, right? You know, the goal is for every single person there to make at least half a dozen new friends, right? That's the goal, right? So I think this is going to be an awesome event. Obviously, we will have it in the future. However, I think this is going to be a big enough of a success that, you know, it's always going to be capped eventually, right? So highly encourage you to check out that event. However, if you don't really like the idea of nature and trees and wildlife, you could go to the heart of downtown New York City for the Bitcoin Unconference, the Bitcoin Treasuries Unconference in New York City. In my opinion, if you're looking for mega alpha, this is one of the best events to go to. Literally probably like 2 or 3% of the people at this conference are going to be billionaires, right? And a lot of people there at this event are going to be builders in the Bitcoin treasury space. They're going to be very high net worth investors, and they're going to be people that frankly are just fun to hang out with. And I am really looking forward to this because these are a lot of the movers and shakers in the Bitcoin treasury industry. Michael Saylor will be there, Grant Cardone will be there, and dozens of other speakers, including Natalie Brunell, Tim Kotzman, myself, yours truly, and lots of other wonderful people are going to be there. That focus is Bitcoin treasuries, Bitcoin merging with real estate, Bitcoin merging with treasuries. Now, this is not your traditional conference, okay? This is off camera, okay? So if you want to hang out with, you know, hundreds of people, about 350 people in the Bitcoin and Bitcoin treasury space, you know, off camera, where most things are not recorded, this is the place to go to. There will be one keynote by Michael Saylor at the very beginning of the day, but the rest of the day is just a hangout with all these people, you know, and hopefully there will be a lot of really good connections, business networking, and insight, and just a fun time. You know, I mean, how many people will be able to say that they hung out with all these folks back in the day, back before Bitcoin hit $150,000, let alone $15 million, right? Very small number of people. 350 people is the guest cap for this event. And Tim has told me that they're selling out really quickly. And this is your final chance because this event is coming up really quickly here, September 17th. So it's kind of a last minute thing. If you've not signed up yet, you're running out of time. However, if you have any interest in it, reach out to me ASAP because tickets at the door are going to be $5,000. If you reach out to me and, you know, I could put you in contact with Tim directly, you know, you could probably get tickets for about $2,000 depending on what package you get, right? So this is not the cheapest event in the world, especially for one day. However, I think you're not going to regret it if you care about Bitcoin and treasuries. Now, let's talk about something that is free if you're more on the budget-friendly side. I will be speaking at the Bitcoin Indianapolis meetup. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest, or in particular Indiana or Central Indiana, highly encourage you to check out the Indianapolis Bitcoin meetup, not just because I'm going there, but because there are really awesome guys there. I spoke there last year. Wonderful event. You know, 50, 60 people or so are probably going to be there. Awesome folks. That event is free. Feel free just to show up. If you want to go to that event, feel free to reach out to the phone number on the screen or information in the link in the description below. Feel free to reach out. I'll send you all the details for the Indianapolis Bitcoin meetup. That is free. The following day, there was a second free event also in Indianapolis, and that is the Indianapolis Christian AI Roundtable. The point of this event is to get Christians together, in particular Christian men, to discuss the role of AI in the world philosophically, and the family unit and the church and everything else, right? Just because the world is changing really, really quickly, and people want to get together with like-minded individuals to discuss these things. So if you have any interest, in particular, if you're a Christian that has concerns or curiosities or fascinations with AI and just the changing world broadly in general, feel free to reach out. We'd love to have you join the Christian Roundtable Perspectives on AI September 24th, the following day after the Indianapolis Bitcoin meetup. So if you want to kind of do two things in 2 days back to back, this is your chance to do that. Both of these events are free. Now, going international here, if you have an itch to go to El Salvador, this, I think, is your opportunity to do so. I know a lot of people watching this have wanted to go to El Salvador. This is your chance to do so. The Adopting Bitcoin Conference is, I believe, I think it's that and Plan B. This is one of the two biggest conferences in all of El Salvador, Bitcoin conferences in El Salvador. That event is November 12th to 13th. However, we're also doing Bitcoin Boot Camp. We have a beautiful place that we have on oceanfront property, literally right next to some of the best surfing in the world. Absolutely beautiful place. Last year we had about a dozen folks for Bitcoin Boot Camp. It was a huge hit. Everybody loved it. Rave reviews. Awesome time. I was really happy to host that. This year we're hoping to do two. We're going to do at least one, but we're hoping to do two this year. The couple days before adopting Bitcoin and the couple days after adopting Bitcoin. So if you want to have a guided and organized kind of event there, right? If you're nervous about going to El Salvador because you don't know the country or you don't speak Spanish or whatever, right? This, I think, is your opportunity to do so. You'll be able to hang out with half a dozen or so Bitcoiners for a couple days, including myself, yours truly, immediately before or after the Adopting Bitcoin conference. You'll be able to go to the Adopting Bitcoin conference. The total cost for this entire trip is really cheap given what you're getting. I mean, you're literally getting beautiful oceanfront property, plus the conference, plus the tickets, plus transportation, everything else. It's going to be about $1,200 to $2,000, depending on what you're trying to do. So if you have any interest in going to El Salvador, this is a great opportunity. Take yourself, take your kid, take your parent, take your brother, take your uncle, take whomever that person is in your life. This is an awesome experience. I took my dad last time, and we had an absolute blast. You'll be able to see waterfalls. You'll be able to release some baby sea turtles. You'll be able to do hiking. You'll be able to meet Bitcoin speakers at the Adopting Bitcoin conference, right? Probably including Max Kaiser, right? So whatever you want to do, lots of opportunities at Bitcoin Boot Camp in November. And the final thing I'll tell you about is in Michigan, just outside of Lansing, Michigan, is the first annual Bitcoin Halloween party and fundraiser. This is a very cheap event to go to, very family friendly if you are big into Halloween. I'm personally not the biggest person into Halloween. However, it's going to be a lot of fun. There are going to be hay rides, there's going to be awesome food, there's going to be campfires, s'mores, all the things. If you want to come hang out and enjoy a fall and Halloween party, this is going to be October 25th of this year, just outside Lansing, Michigan. Very family-friendly event. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest, but especially in Michigan, highly encourage you to check out this event. So if any of these events have had any level of interest to you, and there's been a huge variety of opportunities here, right? You could be surfing in El Salvador, you could be doing a hayride in Michigan, you could be hanging out with Michael Saylor in New York City, right next to Times Square. You could be on a private island in New Hampshire, right? So the next 3-4 months, these are the half a dozen or so Bitcoin events that I'll personally be at and that I have had some role in helping organize. If you want to be in any of these events or join them all, would love to have you, more than happy to have you and give you as many discounts, as many details as I possibly can. So for details, tickets, and discounts, reach out to the phone number on your screen, which event you're interested in, what questions you have, and I'll do my best to get you connected with the right people. Some of these events are going to cost you a good amount of money. Others of these events are free, right? The whole point why I do this, the whole point why everybody in this video you're watching here today, we care about doing these things is because the people are the best part of Bitcoin. Sure, the numbers are nice. Sure, the number go up stuff is nice, but the people are the best part of this whole experience. So we'd love to have you join us. Reach out to the phone number on the screen if any of these events, whether the Halloween party, the El Salvador Bitcoin Boot Camp, the Indianapolis Christian AI Roundtable, the Indianapolis Bitcoin Meetup, the New York City Bitcoin Unconference, or, of course, Camp Nakamoto. If any of these events are of interest to you, reach out as soon as possible. It's coming up really quick. This is your last chance for any of these events. Maybe they'll happen next year. Hopefully they do. Maybe they won't. But even if they do happen next year, you only get one chance to do this kind of thing now. So highly encourage you to check at least one of these things out and sign up, and I'll see you there. Let's get back to the video. Thanks. Hello, everybody. Luke Royals here, and in today's video, we have three awesome guests. We got Tim, we got Jeff, we got BJ. Thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So probably a lot of people watching know a couple of you, or at least one of you, and a little bit about what you're doing, but I think it would be useful just so everybody's on the same page. What is your background? BJ, could you introduce us to your experience in honking for freedom and what your story in Bitcoin is?
Of course, you gotta start with me, right? Now the pressure's on. Um, I think most people in the Bitcoin space know who I am, except for Tim apparently. But don't worry, Tim, I'm not offended in the slightest bit. Um, I was the on the ground part of the leadership of the Canadian Trucker Convoy, and I was in Canada, and I was the one person who was a Bitcoiner there, who was trying to mass orange pill some of the other organizers who were, how shall we say, a little adversarial towards Bitcoin and didn't appreciate its importance. And well, the next thing you knew, it became one of the most prolific moments for Bitcoin in the Western world, as the $25 million that we raised over 3 weeks was all confiscated, with the exception of the 1 point something, well, who cares about dollars? I think it was 21 Bitcoin that was raised during that period. And over 70% of it was distributed directly to the truckers and protesters until federal law enforcement showed up at Caribou's house, essentially with guns ablazing, to steal or confiscate the remaining seed phrases for the final 5 Bitcoin, which are now in escrow being held by people tied to the government. So that's a little bit of my background. I've been involved politically for some time before then. I had run for office. But my background is just a small business guy who got involved in politics because I was really fed up with the direction things were going in this more collectivist dystopian worldview. And never for a million years would I imagine that would be the centerpiece of such a protest that was, I think, a very significant moment for Bitcoin. And I write about it in this book, Honking for Freedom, the trucker convoy that gave us hope. And you can go to honkingforfreedom.com to learn more.
Great. Thank you. Tim, tell us about your endeavors in Bitcoin treasuries, and help us understand why your podcasts are so ridiculously short. We got to have something more than 30 minutes once in a while. So tell us about yourself and your unique contribution to Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a class of 2021 and really just uh, was reposting everything I thought was interesting for years on end, and found myself in a studio in the fall of 2024 and just started interviewing people, and that kind of became the Bitcoin Treasuries podcast. Um, yeah, for whatever reason, timing restraints or just yeah, something I could probably improve on is probably need more than a 7 or 10 minute episode. Some of them are bite-sized pieces, other ones are 45 minutes or an hour. But yeah, that's probably a good goal to have, is to have 40 to 60 minutes for each podcast.
Well, you had your 21-hour digital conference nonstop.
Yeah, so that's my
so that one averages out better,
that's
right?
my olive branch to try to, course correct on the time average. But yeah, started doing the Bitcoin Treasuries digital conference, and appreciate you participating in this most recent one, Luke. And I just think that's a unique opportunity to virtually get everyone together. I think I interviewed, 44, 45 people in about 21 hours. So just try to give people a flavor of what's going on. And especially if you skip the ad reads and hit it at 1.5 or 2x speed, right? If you're driving across the country, you can get through it, right?
Right.
I was trying to think like I went to college in Orlando and like driving from Orlando back up to central Pennsylvania is about 21 hours. So that's a good example of when you'd want that much content.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only 18 and a half if skip through the ads and do 1.5. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, we have the unconference coming up in New York. That'll be a little bit of a different format. I actually just saw this morning a post from Professor B of Adam Back and another gentleman on stage, and the caption said something to the effect of, the most uh, interesting and fun part was the Q&A and the reaction to the Q&A. And I think that's what we're trying to bring to this Bitcoin Treasuries Unconference is more audience participation and really like less about the people on stage that maybe are saying the same thing they said 3 months ago and more about really creating that conversation to try to further the discussion about some of these things because everything is so new. Like a Bitcoin treasury company didn't exist 6 years ago. So I think that'll be a unique opportunity.
Jeff.
Um, let's see, I was a fiat entrepreneur for most of my life. 2020, I had to shut down my fiat retail stores, and that gave me plenty of time to go deep down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin. So I've been deep down since 2020. We started Mass Adoption, which is the largest New England meetup group. I think we started in 2021. We are an advisory company. We do meetups and we do events, which we're going to probably talk about later on. So ever since 2020, I've been deep down the rabbit hole, and Bitcoin consumes my life, and I'm very grateful that it's there because it gives me hope for my family and for my children and for my friends. So I'm very excited. First of all, BJ, you were joking around about your experience, but your participation and what you did back with the Freedom Convoy was, I was there blow for blow, and it's really, my heart goes out to you, and thank you very much for all you did.
Well, we're still being sued for $460 million, and that will continue for many, many years in the future. And I can speak with practical experience of what it's like to have all your bank accounts frozen. As well, more and more people seem to be going through that. I actually wanted to ask you something, Jeff, and I think this is important for context. Why did you decide, what did you guys decide to do Camp Nakamoto? What led to this? Because I think this is important for people to understand.
Yeah, thanks. Well, what led to it is, we threw in 2021, or I guess it was maybe 2022, we threw a Freedom Festival. We didn't want to focus on Bitcoin because it was way too early to get people's attention to Bitcoin, beyond our echo chamber on Twitter. So
Yeah.
we wanted to concentrate on freedom because most people can understand the value of freedom. So we threw a Freedom Festival, and luckily we had the support of some great Bitcoiners that helped us pull that off. Luke is one of them. We had guys like Larry Lepard and Greg Foss and Surfer Jim and Michelle Weekly and Haley Len, and we had a great group. And BJ, you were part of it, and you brought down your trucker friend Saba. That was an amazing participant in the festival. So we started with Freedom Festivals, and then this year we realized we don't want to we want to elevate, because there's a lot of conferences out there. We're not the biggest, we're not Bitcoin Magazine. We're like, well, the progress is Bitcoin lifestyle, because we've all been in this long enough, we've matured with Bitcoin. Now let's kind of live our lives as a Bitcoiner, meaning clean food, touch grass, hanging out with like-minded people. And so this is basically an exclusive event or retreat that basically integrates Bitcoin into the just regular lifestyle. And hopefully we can show people you can actually be on a Bitcoin standard, live a Bitcoin lifestyle. And I think we're at the very beginning of it. And I just think that's how conferences are going to go. Besides Tim's great unconference, I think that's how conferences are going to go more so in the future. I think people are getting a little, well, I shouldn't say it because maybe new people aren't, but older people that have been in the space a while, I think are getting a little tired of sitting in a big room with 1,000 people just listening to a speaker and having no interaction back and forth. So we just thought this was the next progression of Bitcoin events. So thanks for asking that, BJ.
I would say that I think Tim's unconference in New York City is actually, in that similar vein, right? Obviously, it's in downtown Manhattan, not in a not on a beautiful island in the middle of Lake Winnipesaukee in peak New Hampshire fall colors. So obviously, it's a very different scenery, and obviously it's a bit larger event, but I think it's a similar kind of vein. I mean, Tim, you already said that a little bit earlier that the whole point is to kind of have that unconference and more, the way you put it was audience participation, but I guess the way I would put it is that it's like building networks and interactions, whether it's Camp Nakamoto or it's the unconference, like the goal is make friendships, make connections, make business connections, make those kinds of relationships as a result of the event. Would you say that's correct, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, this might sound like a wild concept, but like maybe even might make a friend.
Well, let me interject for 1 second. The proof is in the pudding. Luke and BJ, I consider you a good friend of mine, and we've had relationships since 2020 or 2021, and we are friends now. So we have made friends. So it's no joke. This is get off the couch, get to these kind of events, and your life will change. And I'm working on Tim is becoming a good friend. I got a little ways to go, but I'm still working on. But you guys, I consider a good friend. So hopefully, you can actually make friendships, bonds, and memories, and just enhance your life by coming to these events.
Absolutely. I mean, it reminds me of, I don't know if this is just what some wackadoodle said once, and it's not actually useful, but it was something like the worst way to make a relationship is to try to make a relationship. And it's like the best friendships, the best relationships kind of happen naturally and they happen over time. And I think these events are like that's exactly what's going to happen is you get to meet not just one or two people, but you also get to spend time with them. And I mean, the original concept for the unconference was based 100% on what Fred Krueger did out in Santa Monica last fall. He's doing it again this October. And it's literally like four sofas in a square, and you have people sitting on the sofas, and you have maybe people like standing around. Everybody's basically in a circle. It's not televised. It's not being filmed. It's not being recorded. It's not being live streamed. You have one or two or three thought leaders kick it off for maybe a minute or two, but maybe not, maybe for 17 seconds, and then somebody interjects, somebody asks a question. It's like a Twitter space in real life. And I mean, when there are no chairs facing a stage, I think that really helps. And so when Saylor reached out and said, "Hey, I'd love to be a part of it," um, I thought it did make sense to kind of kick it off with a keynote, right? Kind of grab everybody's attention, but then after that, have it more of that feel where you have everybody participating and everybody that's there in person feels like at any time they can stand up and grab a microphone and make a comment, ask a question, and join the conversation. And yeah, I think that's the next level. And same thing with Camp Nakamoto.
The way I look at it is that either way, like there's nothing to lose, right? I mean, having a friendship network or having a network of people in your life that share similar values and that you have those past relationships with. I mean, no matter if it is a event in downtown bustling New York City and it's about making business connections and improving your network and like no matter if the future of Bitcoin and the world proverbially is bright, let's say, and there's not censorship and everything goes well, then like you want to have friends and networks because there's going to be opportunity to take advantage of, right, and to capitalize on, to make the most of, and to enjoy the process, right? But then like in BJ your case, I'd love for you expand on a bit, like a lot of other Bitcoiners worry about, oh well, censorship this, 6102 that, right? And I think that a lot of Bitcoiners get lost in this conflict of trying to predict the future, the thing they can't control, and figure out, oh, are we going to go the 6102 route and it's going to be like the Canadian trucker convoy and all these bad things are going to happen. And other people are saying, oh, it's up forever, super cycle, orange ties, treasuries, whatever, right? And I think
Nice.
people need to focus on what they can control. What you can control is you can make friends, you can make connections. And no matter if you're an optimist or a pessimist, like those relationships are important. So, BJ, would you mind? I don't know uh, what direction you'd like to take that, but in what ways did the interpersonal relationships come to be really important during those events, and of course the events after the more infamous ones of the convoy?
Well, I mean, what I often say in interviews when it's relevant, and I've tried to communicate to some to Bitcoiners as well, and maybe because I'm pretty optimistic, true suffering is the attempt to control the uncontrollable, and you can't fight the universe. And what's interesting about it is, I don't know if this is Nick Bostrom who said this, or Musk, or one of those guys. The most I think it was Scott Adams was the first one actually. The most entertaining outcome is going to be the outcome that we're going to experience. Now, that doesn't mean it's positive. That could be negative, but it's definitely interesting. And we see this with Bitcoin, right? That this is like, who knew? I didn't know going to Ottawa to go do some interviews. All of a sudden, I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin and trying to, get non-Bitcoiners and Bitcoiners working together and that sort of thing. Like, who would have been able to predict that? So I think one of the problems we do make, and it's a cause for frustration, is people. I mean, we generally we're wired this way. We do like some sense of absolutism, and we want to be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. And one thing I've noticed, whatever people predict, it's always the opposite, right? It's always the opposite. Oh, we're going to have a strategic reserve or whatever the policy is that's going to be floating around. Great, Bitcoin's going to go up. Bitcoin goes down every single time. And it's hysterical. Me and Joe Colasari have talked privately about that. Like, yeah, whenever we think there's something good that's going to happen, it goes the opposite direction. And when everybody's asleep, all of a sudden, oh, wow, what's going on,
BJ, you just described my trading strategy. I just do the exact opposite of what I'm actually thinking.
So use the
That's not
Costanza
financial
model for
advice,
trading.
though. That's not financial advice. I
yes.
should have had Tim throw that out there, but it's not financial advice.
That's right, Costanza trading. So I think, who knew that I would link up and become good friends with Larry Lepard and all of you guys? Like, it's been, who knows, man? This is what's great about it. And what I do love about the Bitcoin space and Camp Nakamoto, I think, is something that's going to lend itself to that is we all come from like different walks of life, different world perspectives, different political views, different experiences. And it's just become this common denominator that allows us all to finally talk to each other, because people weren't talking to each other for quite some time. That's what's caused a lot of the bifurcation in society, which is also something that I was trying to change from foundationally during the trucker convoy. We weren't going there to protest. We were going there to celebrate freedom. Well, who doesn't want to celebrate freedom? Everybody wants to celebrate freedom. So when you find that common cause, it becomes very easy to, dial back some of the, extreme rhetoric that people get sucked into. You see on Twitter, you see online. Like, that's not how we behave in real life. And how we behave is when we're one-on-one. So yeah, okay, disagree with you on some stuff, but let's talk. And Bitcoin has, I think that's one of the biggest gifts that Bitcoin has given to the world. And it perfectly parallels the model that I was trying to bring forward during the trucker convoy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. I think that's why Bitcoin works, is that it's this neutral way for people to communicate. I think that's why time in Bitcoin is special, is because most people in Bitcoin right now are in Bitcoin because they have a moral or a greater vision, let's say, than purely number go up, right? Obviously, everyone likes number go up, right? As evidenced by what people are attracted to, but it's not the sole thing, right? Like, most people in Bitcoin, I think, especially the ones that go to these kinds of events, like they care about the conversations more than just number go up. And I don't think that will necessarily be the case forever, which is why I think these kinds of conversations and these kinds of events are pretty special
Yeah,
because
but why does number go up so important? Why is number go up the thing that brings everybody into Bitcoin? And I think it's just a basic principle that drives human beings, and it's one word: hope.
yeah,
Number go up is hope for greater freedom in the future. So we do tend to look at it a little bit superficially. Oh, just number go up, but I think it's something greater than that. You know?
But also, BJ, number go up, the inverse of that is actually fiat dollar go down. So you're really just protecting the wealth or the value that you've created. So it's not really, it's protecting and hopefully building your wealth, which is obviously number go up if you correlate it to the US dollar. But we know one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin, right?
And
right.
when you have your bank accounts frozen, like I and many other people had, there's one thing they couldn't freeze, despite the various articles in the CBC trying to claim the opposite. And that's nobody takes your Bitcoin. It's your Bitcoin, which is the
So,
importance of self
so
custody,
BJ,
right?
so maybe you don't want to share this with us, but when you
Okay.
woke up and all your accounts were frozen, your ATMs were dead and all that stuff, what did you do to like buy food and buy coffee? Like, how did you handle the next month or 2 months before you sorted it out? Or
I
did you?
didn't. It didn't take that long. It took 8 days, and to be entirely honest, during most of the convoy, I was the one trying to calm everybody down, and also during that as well. I told the story in my book when I left the red zone when the government set up 100 checkpoints like we were in Tehran, and nobody could escape. I ended up going to a friend's house just because we all had to leave the red zone. Okay, fine. And I tried to utilize my credit card just to buy lunch for us, and then boom, it was declined. And then I went to log on to my banking, and my entire banking history on my corporate account was erased, as well as my personal. And Scotiabank completely deleted me, which is the article in Zero Hedge where Scotiabank actually issued an apology, and it explained that it was the government that did that, right? So when it happened to me, honestly, like maybe again, I'm pretty chill. So I was with my friend, and she was freaking out. She said, oh my god, they're freezing bank accounts." And I said, "Relax. This stupidity is not going to last forever. The government is completely incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. They're freaking out, blaming each other, which we confirmed in the inquiry several months after that that's what was happening. And maybe it's because in the back of my mind, I knew that I had Bitcoin anyways, right? So the worst case scenario, if I get really desperate, I had Bitcoin. But because I had run for parliament, I know what cowards our politicians are and how the system works. I knew it wasn't going to continue indefinitely, and it didn't. Most of us, not all, but most of us got our accounts back within 8 days. A couple of businesses were targeted by the government. I think the longest was 39 days, if I'm not mistaken. Inexcusable. But again, when you have the world's greatest insurance policy that doesn't use an insurance company and nobody can, manipulate it, the Bitcoin blockchain, then it kind of gives you a little bit of perspective that, okay, I have a backup plan, a plan B if I really need it. And I think that's something people in Bitcoin don't talk enough about. I think that's because we're privileged to live in the Western world. But when I talk about that, when I go down to South America, that is a message that resonates very strongly with people there who, throughout their entire lives, have seen regular currency collapses.
Yeah. Tim, what do you think? Obviously, you're very involved with the treasury companies, and I'm just curious in general, and BJ, I'm happy to hear you chime in too, but referring back a bit earlier, there's this huge discussion about self-custody versus, treasury strategy this, and a lot of people like to hate on what everyone else is doing with their own money. But I'm curious what you guys both think about the quote unquote other side, right? Tim, probably when people look at you, they're thinking of the treasuries. You're not thinking of self custody, and probably BJ the opposite when they're thinking of people would use the trucker convoy to, say, oh, you should never own a treasury company or whatever, right? But obviously, Bitcoin needs self custody, but at the same time, most people will never have layer one Bitcoin. So I'm curious what you guys think about that, quote unquote. Um, I wouldn't say it's a culture war, but it's a um, fierce debate, ongoing debate in Bitcoin. And I think that that's only going to accelerate in the coming years. So curious if you have any thoughts on that.
BJ, you want to go first?
No, you go for. I mean, I know what I'm thinking already. If you want me to lead in, I can.
I'm just trying to find a post real quick.
Go for it,
Okay,
BJ.
you find the post. I think look, we're all many things, and I think one of the problems is we've been convinced to try to apply a label to ourselves, one individual label, and I think that does a disservice to all of us. We are all libertarian, conservative, objectivist, liberal, maybe even progressive on some issues. We all have those aspects in our character depending what we're looking at. And this is an example where I get completely, very much on the libertarian side. I'm a free market guy. And I don't care if people want to do Bitcoin treasuries. I think it's an interesting business model, to be entirely honest. But likewise, I think we see this with the with altcoins and stable coins. People are still angry about it. It's like, dude, Bitcoin's won. It's won, and it's not a threat to, in my opinion, it's not a threat. So if we're free market people, you let people do what they want, and hopefully they don't scam people. And hopefully, if they scam people, they get what they deserve as a result, and karma will get them. But yeah, I'm open to trying whatever works. But as long as we understand that we have, a communal, I don't want to say obligation, but we have a communal opportunity to teach the world about the importance of storing your labor and your value in Bitcoin to protect you and your family in the future. As long as we understand to share that message, then you go on to do other projects that are kind of tangential to Bitcoin or maybe not exactly in the Bitcoin space. Great. I hope it works. And I wish you lots of success. Like I don't really get butthurt about stuff like that. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's 3 points I want to touch on. First one is the group over at what is known as MSTR True North and those live streams. In many of the live streams, one or several of us make the point of like, we own Bitcoin and then we own MicroStrategy. And I think that's hopefully helpful from a messaging standpoint. It's not one or the other. The second thing is I have the Bitcoin Treasuries podcast, but my lead sponsor is OnRamp, which literally talks about multi-institution custody, where through that model, no one institution can just be like, oh, we're bankrupt and we're taking your Bitcoin with us, or many other scenarios that could play out and have played out in the past. Another one of the sponsors, not to talk about sponsors, but um, my girlfriend's middle school best friend's husband owns Stampseed. Well, Stampseed has nothing to do with Bitcoin treasuries. It has to do with self-storage, has to do with cold storage Bitcoin. So some of that was more accident than design in how it all came together. But I think it's important that someone's listening to whoever is on that's being interviewed and they're talking about the newest, latest, greatest, fastest growing Bitcoin treasury company in the UK. But then they're like, wait, what does stamp seed or like like some custody thing have to do with it? Well, it might not have much to do with it, but it's not one or the other. The third thing is a post I saw this morning, and it just says it's from Fred Krueger. He posted it 14 hours ago. It says this is why MSTR exists, and he quotes a listener from a Spaces that he did, and this is a direct quote. Hi, from the Middle East here. Thank you for everything you do. You're orange pilling the world. Been a consistent listener to your spaces. I just listen, never talk. But I want to give you a little perspective. I can't buy Bitcoin. I can't buy iBit. There is not an exchange for this where I live. There is no access to Bitcoin. The only Bitcoin I can buy is MSTR because it's in the NASDAQ. Yes, Michael Saylor's hope. I hope to meet you one day.
Wow.
So that's the reality of it. It's not one or the other. It's like it's going to take all of us. And I truly believe that.
Thank you for sharing that, Tim. I agree with that. I think everyone has their own diversification of what they do, because Bitcoin is the asset that negates the need for diversification between world's assets. And so now the new question is, how do you diversify your Bitcoin? And I think that's a really good message that you both shared, is that it's a bit of everything. And I think that most people are probably going to have a bit of everything. And in some cases, like that story you just shared, they don't have most of those options, but they have one or two options maybe. And so, who are we to uh, say that one way is better or worse than the other? So,
Yeah.
if we're right, we're right, and the market will show that to us. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. What are you guys looking forward to with the event in person, Tim? Whether it's the Bitcoin Treasuries conference or if it's Camp Nakamoto, we haven't talked about too much. I mean, we talked a lot about the culture, big principles of it.
Yeah.
But just so those know that don't know yet, hopefully they do. But basically, this is an event that's 3 days. It's on a private island. It's in Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire. Jeff, how many people are going to be there?
We have 100 tickets for the audience, and we have about, between speakers and team members, about 40 people. So about 140, 150 people in total. But
Okay,
100 tickets. We've
great. And
already
there's
sold, I'm sorry, we sold about 70 of them. So we have
about
about
30, about 30 left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So what are things that you guys are looking forward to specifically when it comes to activities or things to do? I can start, and I know I'm looking forward to getting out on the water. Um, I've never been to Lake Winnipesaukee, and I've never been to New Hampshire at all, and so I would love to be out in the water. And I'm a huge fan of kayaking and paddleboarding and all that, so I would love to do any of those if those are available. But Jeff, what are some of the things that people can look forward to if they're considering going?
Well, first and foremost, to be able to bond, to spend 3 nights, 4 days with fellow Bitcoiners, plebs, and Bitcoin educators, you're going to walk away a different person at the end of 4 days, for the better. So that's the most important thing. But we combine that with all of the ethos that we talk about in the Bitcoin community, like getting outside, getting away from screens, touching grass. So we have all the, typically in the morning, we're going to do Bitcoin education and panels and topics. And then in the afternoon, we're going to do not Bitcoin, we're going to do camp activities like kayaking, boating, hiking, tennis, volleyball, all that stuff. And then, we have a beautiful ferry that belongs to the island. We're going to do a twilight cocktail hour to see the gorgeous foliage in New England in October. We're going to do a bingo night, a trivia. So we're going to do, poker and whiskey, cigar, the whole usual stuff. But typically the morning, we're going to do education. The afternoon, we're going to enjoy camp activities. And then at night, we're going to relax and, enjoy the venue and enjoy the people. So that's kind of a summary of how we're going to do it.
Hold on, I'm trying to sell you a ticket right now because you gave me an idea of somebody to reach out to who I know would probably be very interested. So I'm just sending the link here and I'm typing, are you going to this? You have to. There you go. Hopefully I will have sold another ticket. What am I looking forward to? I mean, for me, it's like I grew up in Canada. Like I'm looking at the island. I'm like, yeah, it looks like my parents' cottage. This is where I spend every weekend. So I guess I assume Texas Slim is cooking.
Yes, we're doing
All
a big
right,
Chatham Space Saturday night.
All right, so looking forward to that and hanging out, chill environment. And I mean, for me as a Canadian, a very familiar environment. I just hope it's not too cold. I'm going to trust you when you said it won't be. It'll be fine because it's in the beginning of October. But that's maybe my Canadian lens assuming that there are parts of Canada that are already under snow at that point, right? But no, I think it's the other thing is you go to all these conferences, and there's so many conferences, it's impossible to go to all of them, and they're great, but it's two dudes talking. Basically, it's a podcast in real life. It's a couple of guys on a couch, and that's great and all. But Jeff, I think we've talked about it too. But I've spoken to some other people too. That there's so many opportunities to do different things, and getting a little bit more creative in how we bring Bitcoiners together. And I think this is going to be a very important experiment for the broader Bitcoin community to show how we can engage in other tasks beyond a business conference, because the business conference problem is it's got a little bit of the I'm at work vibe, and like people don't always want to be at work, right? Like I don't mind, but a lot of people don't. So here we go, we're bringing Bitcoin truly into somewhat of the leisure part of your life. So I'm interested to see how successful it is.
BJ, adding to that, like for example, Larry Lepard, who is got the utmost. I have the utmost respect for Larry. He is, he's also known for his amazing CrossFit workouts. So Larry has volunteered to do CrossFit in the morning. So you're going to be able to. You've seen all the tweets about CrossFit from Larry, but you're going to be able to be involved in a class or activity where Larry's running the CrossFit. So we're
Larry's yoga class. I can't wait.
Right. So we're merging kind of Bitcoin Twitter, camp and just lifestyle activities. Texas Slim, we're throwing an amazing Cattleman's Feast Saturday night. We also are lucky enough to have Matthew Lisiak, who wrote Fiat Foods. So Texas and Matthew are going to talk about sort of how our food supply has been corrupted and how important it is to kind of concentrate and think about saving the food supply and how it's just being centralized and, like most things in the fiat world, greed and corruption have taken over, and the result has not been favorable for us plebs. So it's much more than just sitting there listening to a in-person podcast.
I agree. What about you, Luke? What do you think? Because I saw you smiling when I said that. The two dudes talking.
Right. Well, no, it's very funny because most of the events I go to, most of the other speakers and most of the guests that I spend time with, hang out with, most of them say, "Yeah, I actually don't go to any of the talks." That's very common. Yeah. Because like, why would I listen to it in person? It's something Michael Saylor himself says, right? Is that the digital version is better than the analog version, right? And it's like, why would I go to a conference where there are 3 different stages and I got to choose one of the 3 talks to listen to at 1x speed when I can just listen to it? If you're going to a conference trying to gain information, like it's just better to wait for the videos to come out on YouTube. Then you can watch all the talks in half of the time and you don't have to wait in between each one for a reset or whatever. And halfway through, you can quote unquote walk out and leave without, offending anybody or feeling, all that, right? You can go to where you feel your time is most useful. So yeah, I actually think that, the main purpose of going to a conference is not to gain information. I think the main purpose is building the relationship. So anyway, yes, I think it's very funny to say that it's basically like listening to a podcast in person. That's basically what it is. So and some of my favorite events in Bitcoin, most of them actually are events similar to these, where they're unconferences or they're retreats or they're things like this. And I think that's going to be what I think becomes more and more. I don't know how it's going to unfold, right? Obviously, none of us know, but sometimes I wonder if there will be these kinds of events in the future, in 5-10 years from now. I think there might be, but I think there might be a lot more noise. So maybe there'll be 10 times more signal 10 years from now than today, but maybe there'll be 50 times as much noise as there is today. I don't know. And so, I'm not sure. And so because I'm not sure, I want to spend as much time with Bitcoiners today and make as many relationships as possible, because even if Bitcoin takes over the world, not everybody will be able to have the stories and the experiences and the worldview and mindset that the early Bitcoiners had. So yeah, I suppose more than anything, that's what I'm looking forward to, is spending time in person with Bitcoin people. I've tried to do that for years on end, and sometimes I do too much, um, which is not good. But trying to soak it up as much as we all can, I think is good.
Yeah, I think also maybe there should be a secondary goal in all of this, since we're going to have everybody together, and we're going to have very senior. We all hate the term influencers, but well-known people in the Bitcoin space. It might be a good opportunity to compare notes and talk about reaching people, what has worked, what has not,
Right.
and share those sort of stories. I think that there'll be a lot of value in that, because that will help us all improve our communication strategy to people outside the echo chamber, or the people who need it the most.
Yeah, well, I would say that's the other thing, is that even if your goal is to get information and learn, I would say counterintuitively, I think this kind of event would be the better kind of one, right? Like, I've gotten way more alpha and useful info from people, let's say off camera, than on camera, right? Not because people are acting like a different person when they're off camera. Like,
Yeah.
they're actually the same people, right? The same personality, same everything. But of course, not everything could be, for everything there's a time and a place, and not everything is shared publicly at the same time. So anyway, I think ironically, if you're trying to get information, these kinds of events are the better ones, even though there's not a stage or a PowerPoint presentation that people can go through their formulated ideas on. So anyway, just as a side note,
But
yeah.
adding to that, Luke, you actually might come to this event and actually have a great time for 3 nights and 4 days. Sure.
Go figure.
Right.
That's a bonus. You actually might enjoy the time.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you all for sharing your time. If anybody wants to join us, hang out in person, you know where to find us. All four of us could be the same place, same time at Camp Nakamoto, coming up here in less than 2 months now. As Jeff mentioned earlier, about 150 Bitcoin people are going to be there. Feel free to bring your spouse, your kids, your neighbor, your business partner, your whomever, right? Feel free to bring your friends.
Luke, that's a good point. I just want to make
Mhm.
everyone aware of the fact this is actually a family camp. And we already have a number, probably at least 20 kids coming already. So we want to invite everyone's family. We included families in our last event. We had parkour for them and some other, flying drones and doing drone warfare. So we had some great kid stuff. So please bring your kids, orange pill them, get them involved, get them to have this experience at a young age.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important too, especially for people with kids that are like, oh man, my kid's gonna inherit a lot of money. I think that's important to a lot of Bitcoiners, is getting their kids involved as early as possible. So yeah. So anyway, we won't belabor the point. Everyone knows where to find us. Obviously, most people won't join us, and that's okay. That's their decision. But ultimately, for those few that decide they want to join us, looking forward to see you there. And as for now, Tim, Jeff, BJ, thank you guys for joining today. Appreciate it.